In a digital era obsessed with firsts, where trends expire faster than morning dew, arriving late is usually a fatal misstep. But what if showing up last actually makes you unforgettable? That's the paradox Bai Lu just shattered. Months after the flower-in-hair trend swept across China like a spring breeze, the actress quietly unveiled her take on it. Not only did she revive a waning aesthetic, but she also added new emotional and cultural weight. In doing so, she reminded the world that delayed impact often hits hardest. Why did her seemingly modest look shake social media all over again? Because, beneath the petals, there was a story rooted in centuries of femininity, identity, and beauty. To understand it, we need to sail back to a port city rich in symbolism and forgotten power. Nestled along China's southeastern coast, Quanzhou is more than a postcard of cobbled streets and red-tiled roofs. It was once the glittering gateway of the Maritime Silk Road, a thriving intersection of commerce, culture, and spiritual exchange during the Song and Yuan dynasties. This ancient harbor was a melting pot of civilizations: Persian, Arab, Indian, Southeast Asian. Each left traces not only in trade but in rituals, architecture, and personal customs. One such tradition that blossomed from this multicultural exchange was the symbolic act of placing fresh or ornamental flowers in a woman's hair. To outsiders, it may seem like mere decoration. But in Quanzhou's intricate cultural landscape, flower-wearing was both a personal and communal statement. It indicated seasonal festivals, marked rites of passage, or celebrated womanhood. Even more, it embodied a poetic longing that life, like a blossom, is short but infinitely meaningful. Today, relics of that sentiment still echo. In crumbling alleys, ancient walls whisper inscriptions like "Wear a flower in this life, return beautiful in the next." The deeper truth? These gestures were never about fleeting beauty. They were about affirming one's place in the cycle of time, femininity, and cultural continuity. Bai Lu, by evoking this heritage, did more than wear an accessory. She carried forward a legacy that had once sailed oceans. In early 2023, actress Zhao Liying appeared on a magazine cover that looked like a poem come alive. With delicately styled hairpins adorned in blossoms, she brought back the floral tradition with an elegance that turned screens into scrolls of ancient beauty. It wasn't just styling, it was a cinematic callback to the Tang and Song dynasties, where court ladies and poets often depicted the blooming of flowers as metaphors for virtue, fragility, and life's impermanence. Zhao Liying's editorial reawakened that memory, making it accessible to a generation raised on digital aesthetics. Almost overnight, China's youth responded with enthusiasm and emotion. Social media became a showcase for reinterpretations. Traditional Hanfu outfits paired with floral accessories, homemade DIY clips, even themed pop-up photo studios in cities far from Quanzhou. Hashtags linked fashion to ancestry, geography, and even political identity. For many young women, it wasn't just about being on trend, it was about reconnecting with a version of themselves that modernity had almost edited out. For a brief, powerful window, the past didn't feel distant. It felt wearable. But like all trends, its momentum waned. The initial spark dimmed, until Bai Lu relit it with a quieter, more introspective glow. Enter Bai Lu. Soft turquoise tones. A floral ring of muted whites. Barely their makeup, a glint in her eye. She didn't shout for attention. She whispered, and the world leaned in. Where others had dramatized the trend, Bai Lu distilled it. She transformed it into a portrait of serenity, turning silence into a superpower. The flowers wären props. They were punctuation marks in her personal narrative. But what made her look so unforgettable wasn't just the execution, it was the intent. In an era of clickbait visuals and hyper-curated content, Bai Lu presented an image that resisted spectacle. Her simplicity was strategic. Her softness was sculpted. By choosing restraint, she made space for interpretation and imagination. Viewers weren't told what to think. They were invited to feel. This is why her look lingered. It didn't dazzle and disappear. It haunted gently, like a song you can't stop humming. And in doing so, she redefined participation in a trend, not as replication, but as quiet rebellion through authenticity. According to Xinhua News, the floral hair clip didn't originate in China alone. It migrated, carried by the waves of the Maritime Silk Road, brought by Central Asian women whose customs intertwined with coastal Chinese lives during the Song and Yuan eras. These exchanges were not merely economic. They were deeply human. As merchants traded porcelain for spices, they also shared customs, ways of dressing, rites of womanhood, and symbols of beauty. The flower clip was one such talisman, a gesture of femininity that transcended language. In Chinese coastal cities, this imported habit morphed into something unique. Women began wearing local blossoms or handcrafted silk flowers, adapting the tradition into seasonal and ceremonial contexts. Over generations, the act became indigenized. Thus, when Bai Lu wears a flower today, she isn't just nodding to ancient Chinese beauty standards. She is wearing a tapestry of multicultural memory, sewn from centuries of cross-border intimacy. Her revival of this practice doesn't just evoke nostalgia. It celebrates hybridity, reminding us that culture thrives not in isolation, but in contact zones. When Bai Lu's photos surfaced, the internet didn't just admire, it reacted viscerally. Comments spoke of purity, dreamscapes, and even ancient longing. Why such intensity? Because in a time dominated by filters and frenzy, her look offered stillness. It was an emotional pause. Her photo didn't sell a trend, it told a story. She wasn't imitating history. She was inhabiting it. That presence, that depth, created emotional resonance. It reminded viewers of things they had never seen but somehow recognized: the elegance of their grandmothers, the softness of old photographs, the echo of a tradition too long forgotten. It was nostalgia not for a personal past, but for a collective imaginary. The kind of cultural memory that exists in myths, lullabies, and seasonal rituals. Bai Lu's look didn't just trend. It triggered remembrance. And in that remembrance, people found not only beauty but a sense of returning home to themselves. What began as an image sparked something deeper, a romantic nationalism, not loud or forced, but elegant and organic. Bai Lu's embrace of heritage made culture feel not dusty but desirable. Suddenly, Quanzhou wasn't just a city, it was a destination. Craft stores reopened. Local guides began offering flower clip tours. Tradition, it turns out, doesn't need reinvention. It just needs reinterpretation. A flower in the hair may seem delicate, even passive. But Bai Lu turned it into a symbol of soft resistance. In a world that often demands loudness, her choice to embrace a gentle, historical aesthetic becomes radical. Her image says, femininity is strength. Cultural pride is style. And softness? It doesn't mean silence. It means sovereignty. Most would say Bai Lu missed the trend. But by waiting, she created space, not for echo, but for elevation. Trends scream. Her look lingered. She didn't follow. She curated. She crafted a moment so arresting it felt like destiny disguised as delay. In doing so, she redefined what it means to be late, arriving with purpose, not panic. With one simple choice, Bai Lu bridged eras, elevated heritage, and enchanted a modern audience. Her floral look became more than aesthetic. It was a call to rediscover, to respect, to remember. Because sometimes, the trend isn't what everyone's doing now. It's what everyone wishes they hadn't forgotten. This video is for educational and storytelling purposes. All cultural and historical interpretations are based on publicly available sources and journalistic references. Thank you for watching. If this story moved you, inspired you, or simply gave you pause, please like, share, subscribe for more cultural deep dives. What did you think of Bai Lu's flower in hair revival? Have you ever tried a traditional aesthetic that made you feel powerful? Drop your thoughts below. Let's talk beauty, identity, and timing. Until next time, remember, the quietest bloom can leave the loudest impression.